Benefits of workplace romance. Workplace romance offers benefits for the employees in particular and also for the company in general. These benefits include friendship, mutual support to each other at work, and other personal experience. Employees involved in a love relationship overcome rough times at work because of mutual support and inspiration. And if the workplace romance is have a benefits, it's also have a disadvantage of workplace romance. And the disadvantage of the workplace romance is that, like any other relationship, an office of workplace romance is risky. It is sensible to have a head start about the possible outcomes of a workplace romance before engaging into one. And this disadvantage can lead to damaged professional reputations, like disturbed coworkers, changes in productivity, dating with boss, and extramarital affairs. There are three ethical issues of workplace romance: the interventions, legal or ethical consideration, and sexual harassment. Interventions is a workplace romance have always been an issue for companies, especially the questions on when it is best for organization to control romance in the office. Others are in favor of the positive effects of office romances, but may want to lessen the bad effects. For example, some companies may allow relationship between co-workers with the same rank. Next is legal or ethical consideration. It is proximity and repeated disclosure are found. Should an organization separate the person involved, this could raise some legal issues such as discriminations. When one or both involved parties are required to leave the company, this risks legal encounters. Policies regarding office romance need to be decided with vigilant thought and prudence in order to respect the rights of all members of the organization. And the third one is sexual harassment. It is a very delicate subject. Peirce and Guinness have posited that sexual harassment may sometimes arise when a bad workplace romance is terminated. There are few reasons why this issue may exist. One of the persons involved in a failed romance may seek vengeance, may try to revive, or would want to remove the other person involved. Price theories. As consumers, or in the context of customer rights, there are two principal price theories that should be of concern to us. The first one is the cost theory of prices, and second is the market theory of prices. The cost theory of prices is value in exchange is a function of the cost of the efficient production or acquisition of the object of the exchange and the required return or profit. In other words, the fair price of a good or service will ultimately depend on how much it costs for the seller to make the product available to the buyer and on the calculation of a reasonable profit for the seller. While market theory of prices is according to the market theory, value is a function of utility and scarcity. This is to say, the fair price of something may vary considerably with the general context in which the thing is offered to sale. If something is offered for sale that is perceived by the buyer to have great usefulness, however, they may be defined this, its value in exchange will be higher. The problem of fair pricing. Our everyday life requires the exchange of goods and services between two or more parties. These everyday exchanges are given the conditions of a barometer we usually call the price. The concept of price comes in many forms depending on the notion of how it is used, but the more familiar question on the concept of price is implementing a fair price. But first, we need to know what is price. So, price is a measure of value in exchange. Strictly speaking, nothing really has a price until it's offered in exchange. It may be expressed in monetary terms or in non-monetary terms or barter. What makes a price fair? But first, we should ask ourselves what is fair. Fair is unacceptable and just. Acceptable, it implies that a fair price is a satisfactory, while just is a judgment that the price has been justified. The difference between an acceptable fair price and just fair price is the difference between that is called personal and social fairness. A price is fair, then, when its value is determined in an exchange in which three conditions are met. First is the buyer and seller must negotiate the terms of the exchange voluntarily. Second is both buyer and seller must agree to the exchange without unusual constraints. And third is both buyer and seller must have adequate information about the things to be exchanged. In determining a fair price, there are two theories explain why a price for a product or service has to be established. First is a man is entitled to enjoy the fruits of his labor and thus an effect sets of price he deems reasonable for his produce. And the second one is the price depends on the law of supply and demand, and fair is that one obtained by a fair computation. Fair price related to a fair return and bidding are determined depending on the value on which the return is based and the qualifications of the given bid. Ethical issues and the fair price. In the limelight of the business arena, prices are normally set differently and consequently receive pressure to line up to ethical standard. So these are some of ethical issues brought about by pricing. First is the true cost of the product is concealed. Some companies normally don't show the real cost of the product with a closed book policy or under the cloud of confidentiality. Hence, the price may not be fair for the consumers. Second is suggested retail price. The impact on the consumers of a suggested retail price is one that is open to a lot of interpretations, making price determination subject to doubt and suspicion. Third is use of electronic scanners. The use of electronic scanners in grocery or department stores is not a foolproof method for pricing fairly. It is subject to manipulation and system failure. D is promotional pricing. Promo prices such as on sale items manipulate consumers in buying products that are thought to be cheaper. Next is follow the leader pricing price gouging. Follow the leader pricing is done to purposely make the buyers believe that what is being sold is the same as the well-known brands. And next is price gouging. It takes advantage of an economic situation. An example is pricing canned goods higher during typhoons and other calamities. Next is price fixing. Uses the power of the retailer among the producers correspondingly in controlling about price. Market structures. The market presupposes the setting of a fair price depending on its structure. Historically, buyers and sellers bargain with each other in setting prices. In a perfect competition market, the price a seller sets is a balance on the willingness of the buyer to pay. Businesses under strict, large, and perfect competition market that offers the best product at the lowest price may be rewarded with higher profits among the other competitors. However, in the long run, under perfect competition, most businesses can expect only normal profits enough simply categorized in the building reputation for excellent products. Corporate disclosure. This is the information that a corporation is morally obliged to disclose coincides with much that is legally required, though pressures for increased disclosure are based. According to De George, there are two disclosures primarily in the following arguments. First is each person has the right to the information, and second is each person has the right to those actions of others that will seriously and adversely affect him or her. According to him also, there are three guide questions prepared to clearly explain the ideas of corporate disclosure. First is to whom must disclosures be made available. Second is what must be morally disclosed. And third is in what form should disclosures have to take. Product misrepresentation and caveat emptor. Misrepresentation. It is observed when there is a transformation of information to misinformation. There are two types of misrepresentation as either intentional or unintentional misrepresentation. Intentional misrepresentation is a scenario whereby the person is fully aware or deliberately misrepresent things, commonly is known as lying. Second is unintentional misrepresentation. It is rare scenario whereby the person is not aware and does not deliberately act on misrepresenting things. It is a situation where the person involved believes that it is right and acceptable thing to do. It is also commonly called as a white lie. Lying. Lying can be defined as the act of making others believe something that they themselves do not believe in. It happens when somebody tries to convince others with untrue statements. It is a speech that is contrary to what the person is thinking with the intention to deceive. A lie, therefore, takes place when the person's actions are not in congruence with his thoughts and with the intention to deceive others. There are types of lying. It is use of ambiguous terms, use of false statements, and lying through actions, suppressions of correct information. Use of ambiguous terms. It is the act of deliberately using vague terms or open-ended statements that can have several meanings to mislead people that one is telling the truth. Second is use of false statements. It is where the act of making a statement for which false conclusions may be drawn, eventually misleading others. This type of lying is often observed in advertising a product to be the bestseller brand. Third one is lying through actions. It is a type of lying where the person gets caught in the act of wrongdoing. A good example of this is when someone is caught red-handed of stealing and still denies the accusation. Fourth is suppression of correct information. It is an intentional or unintentional act of hiding the correct information, which eventually misleads others. This act is sometimes observed in some crime scenes wherein a witness conceals the truth from the investigating body for the sake of his own security or the unwillingness to be involved in the crime. According to Catholic moral theology, lying becomes sinful only when it leads the neighbor to error, it breaches a promise, it violates the nature of speech. However, lying can be morally justified when it is used to protect innocent people, used to protect national security or important secrets, used in the name of the self-defense, used in protection of the bodily integrity. Business practices involving misrepresentation and lying. Aside from intentional and unintentional misrepresentation, the act of misrepresentation may be further classified into other types, which is the direct misrepresentation and indirect misrepresentation. The direct misrepresentation is characterized by actively misrepresenting something about the product or service. It gives the business a bad name because deception and lying are used in the process of selling the product to the customers. So, example of direct misrepresentation is deceptive packaging. It is the object is to create an impression wherein the buyers or the end users will see an improvement, either by size or by weight, without any change in the price. Next example is adulteration. It is the unethical practice of corrupting a genuine commodity by imitating or by adding something to increase its bulk or volume, or even by substituting an inferior product for a superior one for the purpose of profit or gain. Next is misbranding or mislabeling. It is the act of copying a product's design to the closest possible way, giving an expression that it is the same with the leading brand. It is based on the sole purpose of deceiving the customer as to the quality and or quantity of a product being sold. Next is short weighing. It is the most common type of direct misrepresentation. It can be easily spotted in wet and dry markets. Weighing scales are easily tampered by intentionally offsetting the calibration of dials. It is practiced in selling products by different quantities. Next is shortchanging. It's taken directly from a situation where the seller gives the customer less than the change he should get. It covers all situations from quality to quantity of goods the buyer should get in exchange for money. Next is short measuring. It is an ethical practice observed in products that depend on length or volume. And next is short numbering. The seller gives the consumer the quantity by piece of the product less than the number he has paid for. And last example is misleading advertising. It is the term false means any representation or symbol that is inconsistent with facts and where the deviation would be unacceptable to a significant number of the general or relevant public. Second is indirect misrepresentation. It is characterized by omitting adverse information about the product or service. It is facile deception and not as obvious compared to direct misrepresentation, but it still contributes to the impression that businessmen are liars and are out to make quick money. It includes caveat emptor and business ignorance. The following are the common practice involved in the indirect misrepresentation. First is caveat emptor, means let the buyer beware, and is a practice very common among salesmen. Based on this concept, it is the responsibility of the consumer to determine for himself the defects or negative features of the product. Second is deliberately withholding information. It is any business transaction is also an unethical practice. All parties involved in all business transactions must know exactly what they are giving away or receiving in return in order to be fair. And last is business ignorance. It is a form of passive deception because the businessman is unable to provide the customer with the complete information he needs to make a fair decision. It is the duty of the businessman to know that the nature of the product he is selling, the goods in the market, and what goods are really the best of what price.